place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. Yes, it can seem rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, and it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of your inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. Here on the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Are you ready to step into your vibration of change? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Christine Upchurch Show here on KKNW AM 1150 in the Seattle area and on Transformation Talk Radio around the world. We are living in crazy times, and technology is an aspect of adding a little extra chaos. But I want to say hello to the people behind the technology. Oh, gosh, I think we've got Olivia on Transformation Talk Radio. And Mr. Benny Mathers, who's just so far away. I'm used to seeing you across the counter, Benny. How you doing?
No, we just have a larger counter to talk across now, I guess, if you really want to put it that way.
But, you know, it's all the quantum field.
Yeah.
And the question is, can we get the technology to hook up things properly? And I appreciate everybody behind the technology. You know, Benny, is life weird with your boys at home?
It's not too bad. I was talking to Cate before we started the show. It's a beautiful week we've had in store for us here in the Seattle area, and it's continuing on. That's great. It's getting people outdoors a little bit more, which is kind of taking a little bit of the stress off. And I built a fire pit yesterday, so I had some time on my hands.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You know, living in these times of a pandemic, brings up some interesting things. It illuminates a lot about the world, from the vulnerability to the courage out there, from the great dysfunction in a variety of ways to the ingenuity to sort of solve some problems. It also has created a certain type of isolation, but it's also underlined our interconnectedness. It's also illuminated some of the greed that's there, but it's also shown that there is a great deal of generosity of spirit. So this COVID-19 pandemic is illuminating a lot of things for us right now. And our guest today is going to be talking about that, but from an even higher level perspective. But before I tell you who that is, we're going to take a quick 60-second break to make sure the technology is working as it should. And then we'll come back for a long, deep dive into the truth associated with COVID-19. Stay tuned for more here on the Christine Upchurch Show.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. If you're like I am, it can be rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, don't you? And it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of that inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. On the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Join me, Christine Upchurch, every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on KKNW AM 1150 and Transformation Talk Radio, and learn new ways to step into your vibration of change. Welcome back to the Christine Upchurch Show here on KKNW and Transformation Talk Radio. I think we've got all the technology aligned, and I want to introduce our guest today. She's been on the show before. She's one of these people I love to have a deep dive into all sorts of topics. We're talking about Cate Montana. She's the author of Unearthing Venus and the E Word, and co-author of The Heart of the Matter with Dr. Darren Weissman. She has a master's degree in humanistic psychology. She writes and teaches about the ego. She was also the person who pulled me in to talk about spiritual cliches in one of her books. And she writes a lot about sort of transpersonal consciousness, quantum physics, evolution. She's had this journalism background for decades now. She served as the Northwest Bureau Chief and editor of the national Native American paper, Indian Country Today. She's written for the Seattle Magazine and other Northwest publications, although she's not in the Northwest anymore. We'll find out about that. She wrote the newsletter for What the Bleep, the Bleeping Herald. And she's interviewed physicists, biochemists. She currently writes for Psychology Today, the UK publication, What Doctors Don't Tell You, and she also blogs for Huffington Post. I would like to welcome my friend, colleague, and wonderful guest, Cate Montana. Hi, Cate.
Hey, Christine. Well, this is so fun. I love getting these last minute, hey, I've got an opening, yes. You want to talk?
I know, and it's sad because the reason we had an opening was because we had to shuffle people around because of the coronavirus. And we don't know details about it, but I'm so fortunate that I don't know anybody personally. I mean, yes, there's some well-known people who have passed because of this, and I see posts. Fortunately, I don't know anybody at this point who has obviously had it. But it is touching me on a very deep level. And it's not just the changing of the lifestyle. It's something much deeper than that. How has this coronavirus situation affected you personally?
Well, in one way, Christine, okay, I'm a writer, so I'm a recluse anyway. So I live with my computer wherever I am in the house and
right.
In my house, and I'm living in a 2-acre compound on the slopes of a volcano in the country on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So my life, so logistically, aside from shopping is more tenuous and more difficult, aside from that, my life hasn't changed at all. Logistically, internally, the gloves are off. The gloves are off. I confess, I had, me, I'll talk about anything. I had a total and complete abject meltdown about a month ago. The first time I ever heard about COVID back in February, all the bells went off. My psychic whatever kicked in, and I was like, oh my God, we're in for a ride. And about 10 days later, I went into this this coma place where I was in such abject terror. It was like, talk about a veil descending. I felt like I wasn't even here. Something else was here. I was this walking, talking fear thing about COVID. And God bless a friend of mine who does emotional freedom technique. She saw that was back when you were still meeting at the coffee shop and actually having a conversation within 2 feet of each other. And she was just like, oh my God, who are you? And I said, I am walking, talking fear. I don't know what the heck is going on. And she said, okay, let's process this. Well, Christine, I ended up for half a day, for hours, I was literally on the ground, heaving, almost vomiting. I had past life recalls of dying of the plague, dying, in vomit and urine and pustules in a ditch. I just had all these replays of all these times when something like this has happened, and I've been the victim of it, and I had no idea this was in me. This was at a cellular level and at a soul level. Yeah. And it was, oh my God. And after I cleared that, I was screaming, I was tapping, I was walking, I was writhing on the ground. Oh my God. So finally I had to get in my car and just drive because I got to the point where I had to scream, where I just had to and it was the only way because I was in a subdivision with her and you can't do that. Holy Moses. Then it tripped into all the times as a woman in labor, about to bring forth life, the pinnacle joy moment, racked with pain, but of birthing a child. and dying in labor or having a stillbirth. And,
Oh,
and the death, pain, sorrow, suffering.
wow.
Oh my
Wow.
God. So
Wow.
that's just a little bit. That's what COVID kicked off in me. And after I went through that day-long process,
Uh-huh.
I came out the other side, and I swear to God, I'm a different person.
Fascinating. And, it's interesting because I had a reaction. It was probably around my birthday, February 6th. And all of a sudden I was by myself, and all of a sudden I said aloud, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. And I thought, Seattle area. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen? What's going on? The last time I had that experience was I was riding on a bus into downtown Seattle when I used to work in downtown. I was 2 miles away from where I'd parked my car. And all of a sudden I got up to get off at the next stop. And then I didn't. And then it took me 14 hours to get home that night because there was a surprise snowstorm. And, it was a long story. But anyway, I had that same kind of reaction. So I'm thinking, so I started looking for rental properties in the hills of Arizona. It was like, I knew something big was happening. And it wasn't as profound and as thorough a release as you're talking about. But one of the things that I had to contend with is there are all these people out there who I consider to be colleagues, friends, who were poo-pooing this. Like, this is nothing, oh, it's just, it's deep state, or it's just fear that's creating this or whatever. And I'm thinking, heck, we're in this big collective going on right now. And like, if we're in a collective orchestra and we're in the flute section and things are going great in the flute section and the trombone section is sounding awful, eventually you've got to stop the whole orchestra and say, hey, we got to fix something here. So what was your response or your reaction when people were having this kind of reaction, like, oh, this is nothing to worry about?
It's so interesting because when you were introducing the show, when you first came on, you said, we're going to explore the truth about COVID-19. And I just was like, this little click in my mind. I was like, wow, isn't that just hitting the nail on the head? Because there are so many different levels of truth to this.
Yeah.
And the thing that jumps out at me is that we can't know the truth. We will never know the truth.
Right.
We will be in confusion and debating this 500 years in the future.
Yeah.
And that is one of the duplicitous, terrifying insecurities of living on this dualistic plane of matter, positive and negative, yin and yang, light and dark, masculine and feminine, is that we live in this apparently separate existence that is fraught with opposition and conflict by its very physical nature.
Yeah.
Light and dark, positive and negative, the electrons and positrons were the first things created in the Big Bang. So there's been this no way to really find firm ground ever since the beginning. It's always mutable, it's always changing, it's always inconsistent, it's always in flux. How can you feel secure in a situation like that? How can you know truth in a situation like that? So yeah, I mean, just like every other human being on the planet, I've ping-ponged between, terror of dying. Oh, this is poo-poo. This is hard. I mean, look at the death count. It's hardly, what influenza knocks off on a good year in Europe. It's the deep state. Oh my God, it's Donald Trump. It's like, I don't know. And then, yeah. And so we're in this constant maelstrom of confusion and terror. I mean, there's terror at being insecure.
And I think that beyond the terror, what it's illuminated for me, in terms of some of what I've been feeling, but really what I've been tuning into with the collective, is that there has been a great deal of grief on our planet, a great deal of grief about how we have not, after all this inner work for so many people, we haven't created this positive, loving world. There are children in cages. There are babies being pulled away from their mother's breasts to be put in a separate cage. There's bullying. There are bombs dropping. There are people starving to death. There's just this horror. And for a long time now, I've been kind of tuned into this collective grief. And I know that part of what we need to do is release it. And I'm thinking, well, pandemic, where lots of people die, where you don't have control, where you have to stop and shift your life in a variety of ways because you have no choice if you want to continue to live in this world. And it's bringing up like another layer of grief. And I'm thinking on some level, it's too bad that there's all this grief, but another level, it feels important to sort of let that grief out so that our hearts can become more open for, generating and manifesting in a more powerful way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't deal with something until you see it. And I have to say, on the flip side, the brilliance of this situation is basically fundamentally source has gone, go to your room.
Yes.
Think about where you are in your life. Think about what you've created here. Is this what you want?
Yeah.
Is this as good as it can get? Where are you in this? And so, yeah, this is like time out, dude.
Yes, we've been very bad and we've been sent to our rooms. Yes.
Well, we haven't been bad. We have been ignorant.
Yes.
We have been ignorant. We are ignorant of our very beings. We're ignorant that, we can say that, yes, I'm spirit in a body. I'm a soul on a journey. But the truth of it is that we are so bound to these bodies that this is our true identification. This is our true home in our mind. And that's a delusion, but it's a very convincing delusion because, if I catch COVID, I could die. If you pinch me, it hurts. Uh-huh. So I know I have every reason to be insecure.
And yet we've chosen to be in this delusion, this illusion, this experience, probably for good reason, and I don't think it's just about transcending these bodies, because I think there are a lot of people who think, oh, this is just like, this is just something to get over. Well, death will do that, but there's something we're supposed to be learning within the context of this framework, this physical reality, even if it is just this illusion in a matrix.
Well, isn't that the big thing to learn, Christine, is that this really is an illusion, and back to the whole I'm a spirit in a body thing. That's a nice philosophy. Uh-huh. And, again, we all have, if we meditate, we all have moments and glimpses of the deeper truth of who we really are, which is totally not got anything to do with the body, that we are these magnificent intelligences, if you will. Let's just go to energy and intelligence and information. We don't even deal with spirit and soul if you don't want to. Uh-huh. And we know we're something much deeper and greater than the physical. And this is pushing us to the place where we have the opportunity to, as you said, choose. You say, I've chosen to be in this body. There was a time like about a month ago. This is how fast change is happening right now in this pressure cooker we're all in. About a month ago, if you said, well, we're choosing to be in these bodies, I would have said, yeah, well, I don't know, Christine. I'm not too sure we even have a choice anymore. Karma, you come back, you're not awake. You're asleep when you die, and you're asleep when you're probably pretty awake when you come into the birth, through the birth canal, and you arrive here. But pretty soon, the whole idea about, I'm in a body and all my senses tell me I'm separate, I'm alone, mommy's out here, the breast is out here, everything I want is out here, I have to go get it, it's separate from me. Then we become these isolated, standalone units called human beings with an ego that develops, and then we're off to the races and we have our life, we fall asleep, and then we die, and then we do the same thing. So where is the choice in that? So that would have been what I would have argued a month ago.
Interesting. And now?
Now I'm not, now I realize we choose this reality every day. Doggone it. I really am responsible for the world around me and what I perceive as true and real. And I have been buying into this whole reality. I have written books about this not being real. This whole, the world is an illusion. Separation is an illusion.
Uh-huh.
The physical embodiment, all of this is an illusion. Quantum physics shows us that everything is energy and information at the quantum level, beyond the quantum level, and that everything is one thing and everything is united, that there is no physical, solid, material world. It's an illusion. Even Einstein said it's an illusion. It's a persistent one, but we keep persisting and seeing it as real. And it's because we operate in these bodies that we have descended into, occupied. We resonate at the same frequency as the plant and the wall and everything else. So yeah, of course it's tangible and real. But by God, Christine, there's a larger reality behind this. And every religion and every spiritual person I know, including myself, yaps on and on and on endlessly about how this is a spiritual world and everything is an illusion. But do we live that?
Right.
No.
And it's kind of interesting because for some reason, what you're just talking about reminds me of this experience I had, and I talked about this on my show before, where I woke up one morning feeling a little weird in my chest. It was like 15 years ago. And all of a sudden I saw myself as Christine Upchurch, sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska at a kitchen table with a different hairstyle, smoking a cigarette. Now, I've never smoked a cigarette in this life. I used to live in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I said to her, you've got to stop smoking. It's affecting my lungs here. And I realized I can set boundaries. And I'm thinking, this is before I'd heard about parallel realities. And so I thought, this is kind of interesting. Fast forward a number of years, I was feeling very sad about having been plucked out of Lincoln, Nebraska at a tender time, when I was in high school. And I know I was grieving, and the grief wouldn't go away. And it was the weirdest thing because I'm so good at processing things typically, and I have good support. And then all of a sudden I just sort of reached out to the information in the field, to the guides, whatever, and said, please help me. And I was sitting in rush hour traffic, and all of a sudden I could see myself as Christine Upchurch, still living in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I saw my comparison, and it was like this energetic thing, but it was like, there she was, the same age as I was. She'd already had kids, grandkids. Her husband in a happy marriage had died, but had already passed on. Her life felt very complete. And mine, with all this struggle, the cancer, the bad marriage, this and that, was the expansive one. So I knew on some level, here I am, whatever I is, kind of observing. And my focus wants to be where all this struggle and change is, So it's like there's this bigger reality that's multiple realities. And it's a matter of where are we focusing right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I literally hit the wall about 2 weeks ago. I know because you read the email. It was like I had an awakening experience in 2007, and I didn't have it because the experience was the absence of Cate altogether. Cate went away. I opened my eyes after meditation, and I was in samadhi and union, and that Cate didn't come back for 3 days. You know this story, but so everything since that non-experience, because it was just I am, and there was no Cate persona, no separation from the world, and it was the enlightened state of oneness. And I'm like, and then Cate, the neurological network, the perception of Cate Montana came back. And I was, and talk about a descent back into hell, because all of a sudden, even though I knew it was an illusion, the way Cate thinks, the way the human being thinks, the way the ego thinks is I'm separate and alone, and I am Cate, and I'm a woman, and I'm a blonde, and I'm a writer, and all this identification, which is my story. I was back in my story. And up until that awakening, my story had been very precious to me, and I totally believed in my story. That awakening showed me that my story was a total illusion. It was just a mental construct, and Cate Montana is just a thought in my mind. She doesn't really exist at all.
Whoa. I want to learn lots more about that, because that's a mind-blowing concept. We have to go to a quick break, but stay tuned for more with Cate Montana.
whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world.
I'm Christine Upchurch, and this is a Stellar Reflections Minute. For centuries, spiritual traditions have talked about how humans have an energy field, or aura, surrounding them. Although skeptical scientists refuted this for decades, science is now beginning to catch up with spirituality. Scientists can actually measure light emanating from living beings, so they can measure the human aura, which in scientific terms is known as the biofield. Many medical practitioners around the world use an instrument to evaluate a patient's biofield for the purpose of diagnosing illness. They understand that imbalanced or insufficient light in a person's energy field indicates a physical or emotional problem. The good news? There are ways to balance and increase your light, resulting in greater well-being. For more information, please check out stellarreflections.com or call 425-999-9836. That's 425-999-9836.
This is Debbie Pokornik with a break-free parenting tip. Parenting will always be a bit of a mystery. Who knows why some parenting ideas work and others do not? Or why some kids seem to succeed despite family setbacks, while others have so much given to them and yet fail to thrive. The one thing we do know is that once you have a child, you'll never be quite the same again. Awe-inspiring emotions like overwhelming love, extreme guilt, intense frustration, and incredible joy make this job second to none. Breaking free of parenting pressures means recognizing the pieces that make us unique, the pieces that we carry with us from the past, and the pieces that are influenced by the society we live in. When we can pick and choose which pieces we want to keep around and change the others to align with our inner wisdom, we will feel more self-assured in our role as a parent.
For information and to work with Debbie, visit empoweringnrg.com.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. If you're like I am, it can be rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, don't you? And it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of that inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. On the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Join me, Christine Upchurch, every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on KKNW AM 1150 and Transformation Talk Radio, and learn new ways to step into your vibration of change.
Are you meeting your sales goals? Or maybe your business plan could use a dose of the divine. Tune in to Divinely Driven Results with faith-based business coach Elise Smith on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Coach Elise Smith helps listeners get unstuck from their business plateau and become empowered through divine guidance. Build up belief in yourself and your dreams, and learn business strategies that work for you for real lasting results. Learn more by visiting www.divinelydrivenresults.com.
Not merely survive. And I won't give up this dream of life that keeps me alive.
Welcome back to the Christine Upchurch Show on KKNW and Transformation Talk Radio. Having a wonderful conversation today with Cate, Montana, and you're lucky to get to overhear it because Cate always has some fascinating things to say. Cate, okay. Why doesn't Cate exist? Why does this reality not exist? Because I think that we've got a lot of evidence that that's not the case. So where are you coming from with that?
The mind creates our reality. The physical body, yes, it has its own input. Obviously, we can get sick, we can be hurt, whatever, and that drives our decisions and our choices in life to a great degree. But our mind is where it's at. And when we come into these bodies as little babies, we get programmed immediately that the world is outside of us and that we're separate from the world. And as we learn language, we start to identify with our bodies. We identify with the words we hear and learn, and we learn, who we are in the, we're white collar, we're blue collar, we're black, we're white, we're yellow, whatever. We learn
labels, yes.
Adopt an identity immediately. And then it's like, and nobody ever questions this. Why would anybody ever question this? It would be insane to question that, of course I'm Cate Mont, of course you're Christine Upchurch, and you're a white woman doing radio shows and blah, blah, blah. It's
right.
Obvious. I'm talking to you. Here we are. But underneath this, we keep talking about this spiritual kingdom. We talk about the kingdom of heaven that is within us. We keep talking about heaven and we talk about hell. Well, these are real places. And I've finally come to understand that we live in hell. Because I finally got it, Christine. Because
well, there are moments when I totally agree with you, but yes.
That awakening that happened in 2007, 3 days of liberation from no Cate, no agenda, no worries, no concerns. Absolutely, I am safe. I am eternal. There is no death. I was never born. That was the state of consciousness that is us, that's reality. That's what's real. Because what's real is steadfast, eternal, unchanging, and love. Now, we live in the antichrist of that. We live in hell. When I told you, when the neurological network, the associative mind, the way Cate thinks, the identity of Cate started to reframe and lock me in, it was like being taken from, oh my God, it was like being locked in a cell and put it was awful. It was a descent into hell to be crippled and become me again. God. And then I spent the last 13 years trying to figure out how to get back to that place, knowing that I couldn't, because I couldn't meditate my way back to it. I couldn't do anything, because Cate striving to get back to liberation is solidifying Cate.
Right.
Doing something.
Yeah, and the striving and struggle, it doesn't create the allowing that is our best connection with all that is, that bigger reality.
Yeah. And so the truth is it's black and white. You're either awake or you're asleep. You're either awake or you're asleep. You're in heaven or you're in hell. That's the awakened perspective. It's very obvious when I was awake that I had been asleep and that Cate was a dream, a total dream. The exact same analogy is when you wake up in the morning, you're in the throes of a dream in bed at night, and oh my God, it's very real. And then you wake up and it's poof, it evaporates, poof. It's the exact same thing when you awaken from this reality. It's poof, and it's like, oh my God, I could have had a V8. Oh my God, all this time. And it's so obvious and it's staggering. So, and then we are also in the dream. The dream is real when you're in it.
Yeah, it
is very real.
And I do believe that we're willing participants in this dream.
Absolutely.
But it's a collective. I mean, so there's this aspect of playing out within the dream, if that's what you want to call it. And it is a bigger picture, a collective, that trombone section's getting loud and off key, so how do those of us who have been doing our best to play really good music deal with this awful sound coming from the orchestra right now? How do we respond to this?
Well, as we talked about during the break, it is all about how we react to this situation. It's all about us. Whatever the governments do, whether this is the deep state plot or COVID was sent to this planet by aliens, whatever the actual overarching truth that we will never probably know, is bottom line is how do we react? And what I have come to in these past 4 weeks is that I'm choosing finally to look at reality. And instead of the dream, I'm choosing finally to accept that there is this greater kingdom within, and that it is here right now, shining. That that love and our eternal life is right here, right now. Have you ever seen any of those those pictures where, look at this, do you see the lady or the hag? It's one of those perceptual tests.
Yes, yes.
It's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm looking at the hag for 68 years, and then all of a sudden I wake up and I see this beautiful woman. The drawing hasn't changed one iota.
Right.
My perception has changed, and it's that dramatic, a shift in consciousness. Now, the trick is to hold the picture of the beautiful lady. The trick is to hold the vision of this place as whole and complete and perfect and loving and divine and beautiful. The midst.
I think that there's. I'm sorry, what?
I said to hold that vision in the midst of all, even though everything is telling you, no, it's a hag, no, it's a hag, no, it's a hag. It's like, no, it's not. I refuse.
Or we could actually take that bird's eye view and say, we have both the hag and the beautiful woman.
Absolutely. And when do we finally choose heaven or hell? I see, I've been playing this internal game for 13 years, Christine, ever since that awakening in the 3 days and all that. And then Cate came back, and Cate has spent the last 13 years trying to resolve the two. Yes, I have finally accepted that I'm in this reality, and Cate came back, blah, blah. I finally understand why Cate came back. I didn't know why for the longest time.
Why?
And it's because I had set forward my will, my ego will, for decades. I want to publish books. I want to be famous. I want to have this experience. I want to travel. I had a boatload of karma, full steam ahead, that I had to live, that had imprinted on the quantum field, that had to be lived out. So, I was invested in my special, unique, individual ego and its desires and what it created. I had to live it out. I've really only come to this in literally the last few weeks. And I'm like, oh, of course I had to live this out. So what the whole COVID situation has done, everything is so, boy, I would love to use a few 4-letter words, but anyway, this world is so verschukta that I finally just went, oh my God, this is not heaven. This is not who I really am. This is not where I want to dwell. This is not the vision I want to hold anymore. This is not the identity I want to have anymore. I know there's greater. I have to see through this veil of tears. And this is a veil of tears. Yes, I have divine moments. We all do. And it's beautiful, but it doesn't last. I don't care what you want in this world. It doesn't last. And inevitably we come to death. And that is the exact antithesis of what is real, which is eternal life.
And my goal in this life is to integrate in a way that, instead of like having moments of that connection and living in the hell, and then having like these compartmentalized, experiences, to like shift back and forth on a moment to moment basis. Because I think that, how do I put this? To me, that's my goal in consciousness. And it's not about like needing it more of the time, but rather to like be more aware of the duality on the moment to moment basis and live my life kind of having both aspects help me to navigate within this realm we call Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a choice, and it's a back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I've done that for 13 years. I don't want to do that anymore, Christine.
So what are you going to do?
I want to see the truth. And the truth is, so, it's interesting because right now I have a lot of practice time watching Donald Trump, do his thing on his daily briefings, and the mess globally, the confusion about COVID, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm finally realizing that we are all divine beings. I am not Cate Montana. Donald Trump isn't Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's not this narcissistic whatever being. Mm-hmm. He truly is a child of God. And until I stop judging him, mm-hmm. and seeing him as a narcissistic jerk who doesn't give a hoot about anything or anybody but himself, and judge him for that, and hate him for that, mm-hmm. and despise him for that, and want, I hear people say, I wish the shooter would take him out. That is pure attack mode. But mm-hmm. if we look at the truth of we are all one, I'm attacking myself. Yeah. When I attack, there's no getting around it. And it's satisfying to the ego. I'm so much better than Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. The ego loves to be right and to be better. It needs to be special. That's what the ego is all about. Let me be special. And there's nothing more special than to add spirituality to that. Oh, I'm going to become right.
Yeah. And with Donald Trump, I keep coming back to compassion for how a narcissist is created. It's typically between the ages of 2 and 4. They either get abandoned, rejected, or have some significant fear of abandonment or rejection. And it based on his history with his father that's in the public realm, it makes perfect sense. And so he got into survival mode. That empathy center in the brain never fully developed. And it's evident, and it's horrific sometimes to see what unfolds because of it. And yet I've got great compassion for that little boy mm-hmm. who didn't get the love that he needed. Absolutely.
He is in hell.
Yeah.
He's in hell. Yes. We're all in hell, on and off, sometimes. And again, what I'm finally doing, Christine, is I'm taking my eye off of the ego's dreams of, if I could just write enough books and become famous enough, I'll make enough money, and then I'll be safe.
Yeah.
Somebody. And I'll be more than anything, I'll be safe. I'll be secure. If I have enough money in the bank, if I have enough stocks. Right now, all of that is being stripped violently from almost everybody in the world. And we are being forced to look at a brutal truth. There is no safety and security in this reality. None.
And I want to talk further about that, but before we go any further, I do want to make sure our listeners know how they can connect with you. What's your website, and how can they connect?
Sure, it's www.catemontana.com, and that's Cate with a C. And you can also find me on Facebook, The Real Cate Montana.
The Real Cate Montana.
Cate Montana was taken, so I had to do we have
The Real.
So when I did The Real Cate Montana, don't you know, I just about busted a gut laughing.
Okay, so, all right. We're in this dream. COVID-19 has made its presence known. Do you feel that there's any wisdom or lessons within the context of this hell, as you call it, that we're supposed to live to get us closer to heaven?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most bold and brilliant opportunities humanity has ever had, especially because we're at such a point where we can thank God we can communicate even, when we're quarantined, and we've got the media and we've got the opportunity. And I think that we cannot help but see how unsatisfying our lives have been in the past, and how we've been sucked out into doing and having, and that's not sustainable. It's not satisfying. It's not sustainable, and it's not satisfying. Why are we doing it?
Yes.
So that's the first step. I'm talking about some way far out there shift into, total altered consciousness about embrace, what is, and embrace. I'm still struggling with this. I'm in process, but my God, what we all can do right now is to take a long, hard look at what we have valued and see that it's built on it's a castle made of sand.
Yeah, it is. And it's the isolation that this creating by necessity within the physical realm kind of underscores the isolation that's already existed on some level. And we're craving more of that connection. I think about how more people are texting and FaceTiming with people they care about. I've got more connection with my brothers right now than I have in a long time. And the things that I'm craving are like, you know, basic things like sitting in a restaurant across the table from my son, having a really deep conversation, you know, while getting yummy Mexican food. That things that are simple, and yet that's what I'm valuing right now, are those connections. And I think about our economic system. Oh my goodness, you're talking about it's been built on sand. Absolutely. The haves versus the have-nots, which again, there's a lot of grief associated with where we've been there. And this is kind of accentuating for us, illuminating for us how dysfunctional and unsustainable it is.
This is how dysfunctional and unsustainable the ego is. The ego perception is always about needing to be safe and to protect itself, and which means attacking others. It means competition. It means war. It means I have to justify my position. I have to justify my attitude and my belief systems. I have to justify my existence. And underneath all this is terrible guilt. And a sense that something is deeply wrong and I don't know what to do. And we're told to go to a God that we've been taught is this angry son of a gun up in the sky. And so so God is frightening. I know. Hey, Benny, I'm trying to not make you work later cleaning this up.
I appreciate that.
You know, so we don't trust God.
Yeah.
So where can we go? Poor beloved human beings. Oh my God. And we are these divine spirits that are pure consciousness, that we can walk in a second into absolute bliss. But we have to drop our attachment to the world we think we want, which is all based on a separate ego.
That A word, attachment. Yeah. And that attachment to this illusion of safety is probably one of the greatest attachments there is.
Absolutely. So, you know, here's my talisman on a moment-to-moment basis walking through this situation is, where am I? I'm pretty much either in two states. I'm either in fear or I'm in love. And those are the two opposite choices, and reflecting two completely different realities. And when I find myself starting to go into fear, it's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to pay my rent? I'm like, oh, well, I do not trust God. I do not trust spirit. I do not trust my divinity. I do not trust its promise. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a spiritual teacher who's a hypocrite. Okay? So because I'm not moving into that reality. I'm not fiercely holding on to that, what I know is true, even though I cannot see it. I cannot touch it. Everything that tells me that I can depend on something, it isn't there.
Right.
I can't depend on this either. So why not make the choice to start choosing to trust in the invisible and the unseen, which we are anyway, and spend more and more time focusing on that aspect of our being and doing our best to hold that other vision.
And even if we can't trust, we also can't control it. And I think that for many of us, facing the lack of control is terrifying.
It's great.
It's terrifying.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Earth is a darn good school.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, the whole point is to be able to come to the point where we see through the illusion and leave the playground. How long do we want to stay on the playground that inflicts so much pain and suffering?
Yeah.
And yes, it's lovely. It's lovely to have a dream. As long as here's been my shtick, Christine, for the last 13 years. As long as I'm in this bloody dream, I may as well make it a happy dream.
Uh-huh.
So my whole intent and purpose with all my books and all my talks and everything else is, well, let's uplift the game. Let's bring us up to a different playing field so that we can have fun together.
Right.
And that's the vision I think we all hold. But I think what really slammed me between the eyes, and I hate to be, I'm trying not to be depressing, but what really got me is that even if we talk about the 1,000 years of light that's to come and enlightenment and joy and all that, 1,000 years?
Yeah.
After that, what happens? We descend back into darkness and ignorance and pain and suffering again. It's like, it's the nature of the world. It's cyclic. It's up and down. It's inconsistent. It's not trustworthy.
And the polarity creates a great realm for learning.
Yeah. What do you choose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Despite all hell breaking loose, what do you choose? What did those beloved Christians facing the lions in the arena, never once flinching from their faith? What does that take?
Mm-hmm.
To see a different kingdom?
Yeah.
Hold dear to that and trust that it's there, because that kingdom is there and it will never betray us, and it will never let us fall or fail, because we can't.
And I think that there's, for those of us who feel like we're here for a purpose to help shift things, it's we're having to let go of the attachment to how this turns out. We need to show up in a big way, but let go of attachment, because we can't control it.
Absolutely. One of the big things, and I said, one of the reasons Cate came back, because this Cate ego had an agenda, had books to write, things to say, and la la la. It was all about what Cate had to do. I finally am letting that go. That's why I'm starting to teach A Course in Miracles. It's the best tool I know, aside from meditation, to getting out of the illusion that we're in and to find heaven within us again.
And I love the fact that are you charging a fee for this teaching?
No. Which
is great. So is it on catemontana.com?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me at the real Cate go info@catemontana.com.
Great. And
so I just want to make one last point. Is this like
quickly
from Ego Cate, my agenda, my message, my this, that, and the other thing. I'm surrendering. This book is the best thing I know to get people out of their pickle, me included.
Okay.
So,
cool. Cate, thank you. I know there's so much we don't know about this, but I really appreciated having this conscious conversation with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, darling. What a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us here today. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you'd like to empower yourself to step further into your vibration of change, please visit my website at christineupchurch.com, where you can learn more about my insights, upcoming events, and private sessions.
The views expressed on